Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman joining you with the 190th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We have a totally loaded agenda today, as you might guess. So we're going to take a very deep and unrestrained dive into the realities of protecting this election, especially in Georgia, which has become a swing state, and North Carolina, and maybe Pennsylvania, and certainly Arizona. Those are how the United States evolved into a country of 340 million people where elections are decided in 7 states is beyond me, but that's where we're at.
Harvey's got a quick call here. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we'll be getting right to ALAN MINSKY, and Greg Palast, I think, is looking for the link to get on board. Let me call on Alan.
Okay,
Alan,
yes. I was just talking to Greg Palast, who's going to be joining us briefly. We do have ALAN MINSKY with us. Alan, say hi. Let's make sure we're connected.
Hello, everybody. And so
it's great to have you, Alan. Alan is the executive director of the Progressive Democrats of America, and my co-host of the KPFK Sports Show, which is in waiting. It's sort of in an embryonic state right now. And as I've mentioned before, we will open that show with a definitive announcement of the 3 greatest of all time in football, baseball, and basketball. So I'm sure we're all waiting for that. Meanwhile, Alan, who I've mentioned before is the only St. Louis Cardinals fan I've ever known, is going to talk to us about a new innovation, among other things, in the get out the vote for the upcoming election. So, Alan, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you, everybody. I am going to place into chat right now what I'm going to be talking about. And actually, I suppose I should ask if we can share the screen, or if I can share my screen for a moment. I think I can.
As long as you remember, Alan, that you're also on the radio. So you want to, we do welcome visuals, but we mandate that the presenter fully explain. For example, I'm looking at a blue map of the United States where you can explain what's going on, Alan.
Right. And the website is 2024, so 2024, voterscalendar.org. And this has been inspired by the work of Mimi Kennedy and Steve Rosenfeld. And this year, the research work was done almost exclusively by, well, a little bit myself, but almost exclusively by Melissa Figueroa. And it is now a project. And so right now I am saying I am no longer the executive director of Progressive Democrats of America for all purposes, but rather the founding chief executive officer of the Tim Carpenter Institute, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that is named after the founding executive director of PDA. And it exists to study issues of political economy and democracy around the world, and to produce things like the 2024 voters calendar. This is entirely nonpartisan information. And whoever is sharing their screen now is going to click on a state. And let's click on, well, not South Dakota, because that's a little distinctive. Okay, we know South Dakota, not Oregon, that's distinctive. Let's click on Missouri, my home state, where the St. Louis Cardinals, and there you see what we have for each state. And at the very top, because we're pre-voter registration in every state, we have all the fundamental information about how to vote on each state. So voter registration deadline is at the top right now because none of those have passed. Then how to check your registration. And if you get, the person can scroll down, you'll see that 3 is voter ID law. In the next few days, we're going to drop that down to number 5. So number 3 will be order your absentee mail ballot. Number 4 will be early voting information. And then number 5 will be voter ID law, because we, again, are trying to prioritize what's coming up earliest. Then number 6 is become a poll worker, and number 7 is additional questions. If you go back to the general map right now, the person who's in charge of this, and click on any other state, let's click on Ohio or Kentucky, whatever you want, Ohio, then you'll see it's absolutely replicated for each state. voter registration date at the top, October 7th. Check your registration next. And it goes through, each state is like this. Now, my ask for everybody on this call, since it is such a concentrated and brilliant group of people who are aware of voter protection issues and voting rights as well, that if you can, troubleshoot each state that you're in and make sure the information on the page is correct. We are going public with this basically tomorrow, by the way, which is National Voter Registration Day. And so we'll be going public tomorrow, but we're going to be updating this on a daily, okay? And we can take the screen off now, since we're going to be attentive.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Where in the Ohio section do you discuss the fact that the governor, attorney general, and secretary of state are all criminals?
We don't.
Okay.
That's probably moving into potentially partisan territory. This is very neutral, but here's what we're doing, folks. First of all, my email, and I'll put it in the chat, is alan@pdamerica.org. And I welcome everybody to email me if they see anything that needs to be updated on their state. Now, what we want to do, and what we hope to do in coordination with this group, and including with your next guest, Greg Palast, is to provide information going forward, very distinctive from other voter. Thank you for putting that in, Alan at PD. No, there's no second A there on what Stephen put in the website. So, sorry, into the chat. PD America only has one A. We make it more concise. So here is my email. Please email me at that address if you see anything that needs to be updated. Again,
It's alan@pdamerica.org.
Right. We have John Brakey on this call. We have Kenny Bruno, who I heard last week on this call. By the way, I do apologize. At the top of the hour, I'm going to have to leave because I'm having a meeting with a very interesting group that maybe some of you have heard of called Field Team 6. Now, I now am leaving being the Tim Carpenter Institute founding CEO, and I'm back to being PDA executive director. They're a partisan voter registration group that's quite phenomenal. And maybe I'll talk to Harvey and Mike about them coming on to this show in the next couple of weeks. They're an incredible organization. And voter registration is really key right now. So we'll be pushing with the voters' calendars, the voter registration deadlines, but especially when we get past that date, we want our website to be distinct from all other voter sort of calendar information websites, and that we want to alert people for states in which there is likely going to be this kind of systematic voter suppression that Greg Palast features in his film Vigilante, how to inoculate yourself against that, and to do it in a way that doesn't scare anyone from voting. First is register. Second is go and vote. But when you are in a state, when this kind of voter suppression is happening, already inside the information on each state, we include the line, check your registration and take a time-stamped photograph of your existing registration and bring that to the polls. And that will be highlighted in spaces where this kind of voter suppression is happening. And again, we think we have a very distinctive approach to this. We know that the Democratic Party is inadequate in alerting people to this particular type of information. And I will leave it there and hand off to everybody else. I'll, of course, be back in the future weeks to update people about this website, potentially bring the Field Team 6 people on. And let me end with this. Please send in anything you see that might be incorrect on your state to my website, to my email rather, which I'm putting in the chat again. Oh, that's incorrect. Oh my God. Please get rid of that one. How did that happen? I copied the wrong one. There we go. And here's the last thing. Here's the last thing I want to say is Greg Palast and this is now confirmed, Greg. We are going to be doing a screening of Vigilante Inc., a national PDA screening on Thursday, September 26th. I hope I'm getting that date right. I am at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And as we hand off to Greg, people can have no illusions about what Greg is about to talk about. Greg's work is the difference between a second Donald Trump presidency. And the margins that we're dealing with, and it seemed, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago after the DNC, and maybe for a few hours after Tuesday's night's debate, that this wouldn't be the case. This thing is going to be just as razor close as the last two presidential elections. And it's going to be about turnout, getting people registered, getting them turned out, and then having their votes count, not go to provisional ballots. And the information, the Republicans know what they need to do to win. And Greg Palast is, I think, the researcher and journalist who has sniffed this out now 24, 23 years ago after the Florida election. He stayed on the case. And this is information that we have to combine when we do voter education in 2024 to be able to negate what nefarious reactionary forces are doing to suppress the vote. And this is a nonpartisan point. We have to be wise to what Greg is about to introduce to you. And we have to be wise about how we provide people with the information that empowers them to vote and have their vote counted. That's what we look forward to working together on over the next few months. And again, very honored that we'll be hosting a screening of Vigilante Inc. with Greg Palast commenting on Thursday, September 26th at 8 p.m. Everybody who's on the PDA mailing list, you'll hear about it. And I'm going to put Yep, that's it for me, man.
Alan, is that an online screening?
It's an online screening, yes.
All right, so you're not going to tell us a theater in Los Angeles to go see it. Everybody will get a link or somehow. How do people get the link to the online screening? Again, please.
They register onto PDA's mailing list, and Mike Hirsch, who knows that link better than I do, he can throw that in. And thank you,
Mike.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for what you're doing. What would you say, Harvey, the great sports announcer, Harvey Wasserman?
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, everybody. I was missing for a minute talking to Greg Palast on the phone. He should be signing in momentarily.
I'm here, Harvey.
Yeah,
you're here.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Alan, we're going to give us. I will introduce you in a minute, Greg.
Okay,
you're going to give us the link for people to write to sign up so they can see Greg's movie in September. So can you do that, please?
Oh,
sure.
We're just making that now. We just have set it aside, and we'll be doing that in the coming days. We'll come back next Monday and drop it in.
You can come back in a week,
yeah,
Alan, and we're always glad to have you back and open up for us. It's terrific. Okay.
And Harvey, if people want to get PDA's emails, and most people on this Zoom already do, but if there are a few holdouts who have yet to get on our list, it's pdamerica.org/join, or just go to pdamerica.org and you can click on join. And while you are there, you can sign up for our issue teams as well. And then you will get flooded with PDA emails for the rest of your life. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. I want to welcome John Steiner to the call. Ray McClendon has joined us. Lori Grace has joined us. We're really here to rock and roll. We got 57 people. Seems a lot of the time we have 57, like it's a magic number, but here we are. And here we are with the great Greg Palast. Greg Palast has won more journalism awards than I have children. He has written for The Guardian, Rolling Stone, all the big publications around the world. He's one of the truly great investigative reporters of our generation, at least. And he is a filmmaker. His new film has just coming out, Vigilantes, which he'll talk about. And I will say that Greg Palast single-handedly broke what was actually the most important story of the 21st century, which is the theft of the 2000 election in 2000 in Florida. Greg Palast is the only reporter to really cover in any depth the purging of the voter rolls by then Governor Jeb Bush, and which then allowed for the Supreme Court to certify in Bush v. Gore the coup d'etat to put George W. Bush in the White House and put American troops in Iraq. So there is no greater reporter, as they say, than Greg Palast. We have 60 people here to join him. He's going to talk about his upcoming, well, it's actually been released, Vigilantes. Greg, You ready?
Yeah, I am. And I apologize for my lateness because I am working in too many time zones. So
Oh, yeah.
apologies
Okay.
to that. And thank you. That was really, I was so embarrassed. That's why my face is kind of reddish from the kind words you said. For those who actually don't know Greg Palast, and I don't assume that everyone knows that, I am the author of the book and film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and several other Times bestsellers. You may see me on BBC television, in The Guardian, and on Democracy Now!, Flashpoints, are our regular outlets in the U.S. And I want to thank Alan and the Progressive Democrats of America. Yesterday, 150,000 people viewed the trailer to Vigilantes, Inc., America's new vote suppression hitman. 150,000, and a lot of that was because of PDA's notice out to their list. So thank you, Alan. You're getting the word out there, and please do join our virtual screening. Now, if you can't make the virtual screening, and even if you can't, because we are going to have a real discussion afterwards about what we do and how we stop these vigilantes. I'm going to tell you what that's all about. I want everyone to go to gregpalast.com. Why? Because right now, you can stream the film for free. Thank you, Leonardo DiCaprio and the wonderful donors to the Palast Investigative Fund. You can get it for free. By the way, there is a choice of making a donation, so I won't turn it down if you want to make a tax-deductible donation. But I really, really, more than anything, want you to go. And I thank you, Harvey, for putting that up. Go to gregpalast.com and you can not download, you can stream the film for free. I want you to get the link out to everyone in your organizations, in your Rolodex. I want you to get it out to your activist friends, but especially your inactivist friends and your Uncle Louis in Iowa, who really thinks that Donald Trump got shafted out of the last election. These are the people who really need to see it, and we're getting it out there. And so please go to gregpalast.com. You can, and if you don't want to commit to the hour-and-a-half film, what you can do is watch the trailer. The trailer itself, like I said, 150,000 people saw it just yesterday. We're heading towards 1 million views, and so it's really just gone nuts viral. And so join. But the important thing is that we want to make it more viral. The more people understand what's happening. Now, here's what's happening.
And Greg, I want to jump in and let everybody know that we're going to be led through the wilds of the Georgia jungle for election theft. And with us also is Ray McClendon and Marilyn Marks, both of whom are at the center of the election protection movement in Georgia. And so they'll follow Greg's analysis. I'm sure Greg's going to have a lot to say about Georgia. And then we'll give Ray and Marilyn Marks, and then Lori Grace, and then John Brakey from Arizona. So there we go. All right, Greg, it's all you, bro.
Okay, so Vigilantes, Inc. The name of the film, Vigilantes, Inc., Georgia's new vote suppression hitman, comes from, it was created by the Ku Klux Klan. In 1946, the Klan had a plan to have individual Klansmen challenge every single black voter in the state of Georgia. And they did. They challenged, so these are not government. These, under most laws in most states of America, in about 43 states, I can say, for example, in California, I can say to the state of California, don't let Harvey Wasserman vote here, because despite the palm tree behind him, he doesn't actually live in California. It is then Harvey's responsibility to literally go into the office of the county clerk and say, hey, I'm Harvey Wasserman. I'm an American citizen. I live here. But that is the voter challenge. That was the Klan plan. And they did elect the Klansman as governor, Eugene Talmadge. And Talmadge was about to be, for this attack on black voters, Talmadge was, the FBI had written up an indictment. They were about to arrest him, but he had a collision with a bottle of bourbon and died before they could cuff him. But what happened to the Klan plan of 46? It became the Vigilante plan of 2024. It started out 4 years ago. They took a test drive in Georgia. Who are they? True the Vote. True the Vote, you may remember, are the characters who created that film, 2000 Mules, creating vote fraud hysteria. But the other thing that they did is that they established this whole system of lists of voters that they want to remove. Oddly, you won't believe this, but almost everyone on their list is a voter of color, is a Black person, an Asian American, a Hispanic, or a young person. In other words, voters of color, the color being blue. Now, I'm an investigator. I'm a nonpartisan reporter, but I got to tell you, it's not partisan to say that 88 vigilantes, every single one in Georgia, every single vigilante in Georgia was a Republican official or activist, every one. And in 2020, in the last election, we had 88 vigilantes organized by True the Vote, and the 88 challenged 180,000 voters. We had one woman, you'll see in the film, Pam Reardon, this woman in a red dress. She dressed like Nancy Reagan with the heels and the red dress, the whole thing. This one woman challenged, ready? 32,000 voters in Cobb County, Georgia. You can only challenge in your county. She challenged 32,000 voters. Now, again, almost all of them Black. I got an interview with her. We go undercover, which is why you don't see my stuff on US TV very much, because American television does not allow you to go undercover, but I have to get in with these people. So we went undercover into her house, and then I uncovered, revealed myself. At first, I showed her pictures of the neighbors, her Black neighbors whom she had challenged. And I said, "You know this woman, Tamara Horn?" "No, I've never seen her. I don't know her. Never spoke to her." "Oh, no, I've never spoken to her." "Have you ever gone to her house?" "Oh, never." "But you challenged her right to vote. Here's your list, 32,000 names. I've called 800 of them. 800 of them. Every one was a legal voter. She challenged 32,000. And I said, "So you didn't have time to call any of them, but you challenged the right to vote." She says, I can't call 32,000 people." And I said, "Well, you know, if you didn't, you may have violated the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Anyway, she went berserk, threw me out. Now, you have to understand, she had a loaded AK next to her front door. She had stacks of ammo, you'll see in the film, up to the ceiling. She had automatic weapons all over the place. She went berserk, and my local camera crew, by the way, ran for their lives. I can't blame them. Thank God I have Zach Roberts, who will join you on other days, I'm sure, my co-producer, but also he's experienced at going at being in very dangerous situations. He took those amazing pictures of Charlottesville. There was a gun in his face. So he stayed with it. And then this woman used language that I couldn't put in the film. The only one you get is asshole, and then it deteriorated from there. But you'll enjoy it. It's dangerous, it's crazy, it's humorous, and that's the thing about the film. Again, at gregpalast.com, you can stream the film for gratis, but I want you to join the PDA discussion, because it's going to be really interesting. And the other thing is, any of you are in the Bay Area, on October 25th, we will be at the beautiful Grand Lake Theater. The beautiful Grand Lake Theater on September 25. That's a Wednesday. This will, and I hope we'll also have a lot of PDA people there too, and any of our activists. Now, that wasn't the only challenge.
Greg,
Yeah.
Lisa Matras, who's on with us, lives in the Bay Area. Can you post links so that people can get to that specific?
We're going to get that out. Yes. Thank you very much. But I would go to, you can always find my info at gregpalast.com.
All right.
And now last time we had standing room only in the 700 seat theater. So please sign up or get your tickets. But the important, now that wasn't the only video challenger, 32,000 signature challenges from this Republican Trog. She actually works with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But in addition, you'll also see me confront a guy who challenged 4,000 voters, almost all of them black soldiers out of Fort Benning, Georgia, who were assigned somewhere else. And one of the people he challenged, he made one big mistake. And by the way, this is the chairman of the Republican Party in Southern Georgia, the guy named Alton Russell. Russell challenged these 4,000 black soldiers, including Major Gamaliel Turner. I want to tell you about Major Gamaliel Turner, and you'll meet him in the film. Major Gamaliel Turner's father, Harold Turner, was the co-founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Martin Luther King. And so they picked the wrong guy. He called up, so he's assigned, you have to understand, by the way, he's the expert in America for warfare of the future. He's 70 years old, career military. He thinks about the next wars. And so he was assigned to Fort Hueneme in California. And so he was challenged because the GOP said, well, he doesn't live in Georgia. Oh, really? You know what? If you're a soldier assigned to a foreign base, whether you're in Syria or Germany or wherever the hell you are, you don't lose your vote if you're a soldier when you're reassigned. You still get an absentee ballot, even if you're a black soldier. So this African-American from a great civil rights family, he didn't get his absentee ballot. So he calls up the registrar in Columbus, Georgia, and says, where's my ballot? They said, Mr. Turner, you have been challenged. And he says, well, what does that mean? They said, no problem. You just come into our office, prove you're a citizen, prove you live where you live here in Columbus, Georgia, and we'll give you a ballot. Huh? He said, I am 2,600 miles away. It's 2 or 3 days before the election. And you're telling me that all I have to do is show up? He said, you talk to fools like that. I'm not a fool. That's what they make you do. They're telling all these soldiers in foreign military bases, all you have to do is fly in and we'll give you your ballot. That's the vigilante vote challenge. And I want to remind you, this is not a government challenge. This is brand new. This is brand new. This hasn't happened since the 46 Klan plan. This is their plan now, these vigilante vote challenges. So he actually did fly in, and he brought with him voting rights attorney Mark Elias. They had to go to federal court, and he got his ballot restored. But the other 4,000 soldiers, every one of them lost their vote. And most of them didn't even know that they lost their vote. They either didn't get their ballot or they mailed it in and they didn't know it was challenged. All those black soldiers, every one of them lost their vote. Now understand, they challenged 88 vigilantes, challenged 180,000 people. They got away with about 10 or 11,000. Notice that number. Trump lost Georgia by 11,779 votes. If the number of challenges that succeeded had merely doubled from 11,000 to 22,000, Biden would have lost Georgia. The other problem is, but that's nothing. First of all, Georgia itself just changed that horrible law, SB 202, and made it worse. They've now made it nearly impossible to do what happened in 2020, which is that most registrars simply refuse to accept these bogus challenges. This time, under Georgia law, they cannot reject these challenges. They have to actually every one of the voters that they challenge, they have to figure out. Now, understand, that was 180,000 voters. Most of these offices says, we can't even deal with this because they're asking 180,000 people to come into their offices. This was during COVID, by the way. This time, Gerald Griggs, who's in our film, he's the head of the NAACP in Georgia. And he said, we expect 300,000 to 400,000 challenges, and they all have to be processed. You're going to see a massive, massive disenfranchisement of voters. Now, here's the other thing. I want to give you a scary, scary number. When True the Vote and the Trump Organization took out the vigilante, and with Brian Kemp's help, don't go along with the stuff that Brian Kemp and Trump don't coordinate. They're buddies. There were 88 vigilante challenges. This time, True the Vote has signed up 40,000 vigilantes in 43 states, mostly in battleground states. I want to repeat that. They've gone from 88 vote challengers to 40,000. 8,500 of them have already challenged, ready? 851,000 voters around the country. That was as of a month ago. Their goal is 2 million vote challenges, and that's going to happen. You know, so we're going from 88 challengers, which challenge in one state, to 40,000, and they've already getting close to 1 million. In fact, I'm sure by now it's more than 1 million votes challenged. Almost no one has brought this up except for one guy, and I will have to hand it to Harris, Mark Elias, who's a great voting rights attorney, and he was just hired by Kamala Harris 2 weeks ago to take on vote suppression. Mark Elias has been screaming his head off that the big threat to the 2024 election is the vigilante vote challenge, which he says is a virus out of Georgia. So he understood that they take all of their, whether they're purging voters, challenging voters, killing off the drop boxes, you name it. They always take these vote suppression, Jim Crow tactics out to through Georgia first. That's their testing ground. And then they take it on the road. They improve their nasty Jim Crow systems and take it on the road. So in the film, you'll love this one. I take Alton Russell, the guy who challenged the soldiers, the 4,000 soldiers, and I invite him to tell us his story. He dresses, believe it or not, this guy, you may think he's a goofball, but again, he's in the state committee of the Republican Party and chairman in the county. And he dresses like a vigilante, cowboy hats, cowboy boots, the whole 9 yards, including a loaded 6-gun. And he makes the point that it's a loaded 6-gun. We invite him to our house, and he's telling us about his hero, the vigilante Doc Holliday. So he likes to dress like Doc Holliday as a real vigilante. What he didn't know, what he didn't know was that he was actually in the home of Major Turner, the soldier, the officer that he challenged. Major Turner comes out and says, "This is my home. This is where I live. This is where I vote. And you challenge my vote." And I asked Alton Russell one question that the major asked me to ask him. Will you apologize to this man, to this soldier whose vote you blocked? And he refused. He refused. He said, "Well, I got it from this group. I saw a movie." He saw 2,000 Mules, and then he got his list from True the Vote. This is what's going on. Now, the other thing
listen,
yeah.
You mentioned that all this comes out of Georgia, and we have people that you've worked with in Georgia with us. If you want to keep going, that's fine. But
yeah,
let me introduce Ray McClendon from Atlanta at Citizens Communities United, and MARILYN MARKS. MARILYN has been with the election protection side of the movement for a long, long time. So either of you, and Greg, you want to keep going, or Ray, you want to jump in, or MARILYN, comment?
I just want to say
thank you.
That Greg has continued to do some extraordinary work.
Thank you.
This is the people's work. It is putting sunshine on some really disgusting strategies that these MAGA Republicans are perfecting. They are better now than they were in 2020. And I think that Greg's analysis here is spot on. We're seeing it on the ground. Truly, Georgia is the laboratory for what they want to implement across the country, particularly in all the battleground states. And we continue to fight this every day. But they have the power because they have a supermajority in the legislature, the governor's office, as well as some of the key statewide offices that give them basically an impenetrable way of having to combat this. That's why having folks like Mark Elias and others on the legal front to go along with what Greg Palast is doing so vitally important, that we've got to put eyes on this, and that's what we're trying to do from a grassroots level to support the party, the Democratic Party, that's finally getting into the game here in Georgia by suing the state election board, along with the Democratic Party of Georgia and some other elected officials. And we continue to get the grassroots organizations to support that and have press conferences and other things whenever we can to demonstrate what is coming. We did not have the presence of mind that Greg had in 2020. We were all focused primarily on getting out the vote, and thought our work was done after the election.
I know. Yeah. Well, we all did. Ray. Hey, I want to thank, thank you, Ray. I do want to note for you, and I hope my Georgia confreres here. I just want to announce that today I was talking with Jesse Jackson, the Reverend. He's kind of good in the morning, and Santita Jackson and Jesse Jackson III, working with C.K. Hoffler, the great Atlanta voting rights attorney who was president of Rainbow Push. With Gerald Griggs, I just spoke to him this week about of the Georgia NAACP, and Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter Fund. And we're going to have a big showing in Atlanta, probably at Morehouse College, which will be organized by Jesse Jackson III. And so we'll have a big showing there. By the way, we'll also be opening the Gwinnett Film Festival, which will be before the election. So that'll be excellent too for those of you who are. So for my Georgians, pay attention. We're going to be, and if you want to have showings, by the way, we have discs to send you. We can send you downloads of the film. If you have any organizations that want to show the film in your church, your massage circle, whatever, we can facilitate that. And in some cases, I can come in physically, depending on the situation, or by Zoom, if you want a speaker. But the important thing is that we get it out. And again, I'm going to say it one more time. You can stream the film. You can't download it, but you can stream the film today and for the next month for gratis at gregpalast.com. GREGPALAST, gregpalast.com.
Okay.
And I should, yep. And so, please join me, get the word out, spread it out, because people have got to know this. And especially, we were very effective in Georgia. I think we had showings in every little town and burg, from Valdosta to Savannah.
Well, MARILYN MARKS is also an election protectionist in Georgia. How does what Greg's saying about the vigilante aspect ring true? And what else are you doing in Georgia to protect the vote?
Okay. Do you want me to do my five or 6 minutes now, or later on after Greg finishes?
Let's just have the dialogue with Greg until he has to leave, and then we'll do that. Okay.
Perfect. Well, I would just say in terms of the vigilante that he is talking about, I would say the group is bigger than we can imagine of vigilantes, from top to bottom, everything from trying to make sure that people don't vote, to trying to make sure their votes don't count correctly, and everything in between. And the other thing I would reinforce that Greg just said is that by the way, I am not speaking for Coalition for Good Governance. I'm speaking for myself tonight. I wanted to be able to speak as an individual in a perhaps partisan way. And I would just say that the MAGA forces this year they are very skilled. They have more resources, more knowledge, more know-how. They are embedded in the places that they need to be effective. And I fear that election officials and even the entire voter protection movement has not really realized yet the depth of their skill, know-how, and readiness. Greg, what do you think about what I just said?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because it's not just the True the Vote vigilantes. And we expect, and by the way, again, it's 40,000. The film, we move out because we had an earlier version of the film that was Georgia only. But this is the national film. It's more cinematic. And by the way, narrated by the wonderful Rosario Dawson, produced by my favorite president, Martin Sheen, President Bartlett. I just got off the phone with President Bartlett. and Maria Florio, Oscar-winning documentarian, and George DiCaprio and the wonderful DiCaprio family. So I just want you to know, go to gregpalast.com, stream it for free, get the word around, but join us with PDA on that special September 28th showing, or show up in Atlanta. But we're going to have showings in Houston because we're bringing into the film. You have to understand, it's moved out of Georgia to Arizona, to Nevada, to Wisconsin, to Michigan, to Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, and Florida, and elsewhere. So you have to understand, you're talking about states that Biden won by, a fraction of a percent. This vigilante challenge can absolutely turn around this election. By the way, Santita Jackson talked about my film yesterday to President Biden and Kamala Harris. So it's a whole new Democratic Party. I have to tell you, I'm not partisan, but for 25 years, these guys have been like missing in action. Finally, we're seeing a little bit of movement.
Yes, we are. I want to ask Ray McClendon and then John Brakey. Ray, could the vigilante challenges to people's right to vote turn the election in Georgia?
Oh, no question about it. The margins are going to be razor thin once again, as they were in 2020. The numbers Biden won by less than 12,000 votes, as has already been indicated. So if you have, they're working off a law of large numbers here. If they can identify 100,000, 200,000. All they need is to get a hit on 10% of that, and that can change any of the races in Georgia. So the problem is that the insidious nature of what has been passed in Georgia and now is spreading across the country is a way to take away that thin margin that's been positive for Democrats, and ensure that number, that 1% or 2% difference, it can literally be the difference in the race.
Wow,
that's
you're
right.
saying
I want to mention. I'm going to emphasize again. It's not only Georgia.
Right.
We're talking about all these. There have been 10,000 challenges by Cleta Mitchell in Florida already. That's Donald Trump's lawyer, and that's not even True the Vote. That's another group. And then we're facing many other. This is not the only challenges, purges. And I appreciate that MARILYN MARKS has reminded us that there's often an edge of violence in these things. That's one thing you'll see in the film. In Houston, Rodney Ellis, if you know him, he's the first Black commissioner in Houston, which is Harris County. He was accused of forging 750,000 ballots in 2020. And guys showed up at his house with automatic weapons. There was an air conditioning repairman down his street, and they decided that the 750,000 ballots had to be in that truck. You'll see in my film, they follow this air conditioning repair truck down the highway, run him off the road. He could have died. He was slammed and run off the road. Then these vigilantes, and by the way, they aren't just like amateur nutcases. This one vigilante that ran him off the road was paid $250,000. One of 50 detectives paid a fortune to find the 750,000 ballots. He runs the guy off the road, puts a gun to his head, and says, "Give me the ballots. Get on the ground. Now you open the back and give me the ballots." So he opened the back of the truck, and there were, instead of 750,000 ballots, there were air conditioning ducts and pipes. Luckily, the guy could have been killed. Luckily, the Houston cops happened to come by and see a guy with a gun out on someone's head. And they did arrest him, even though he pointed out to them that he too was a Houston cop.
Oh my God.
They did arrest him. So this is the violence. And we see in Arizona, you'll see, I go and speak to people in Arizona. By the way, you'll see in the film that I go to a Kerry Lake rally where they are honoring and giving pride of place to the QAnon shaman who had just gotten out of prison.
Oh my God.
But the thing is, one of the Hispanic groups was talking with us, and they're talking about armed men showing up and standing next to the ballot drop boxes, armed men in full military gear and, you know, like RoboCop type gear. They're standing next to the ballot boxes as open carry state with weapons out in Hispanic neighborhoods to stop people from voting. They were even using drones to come down in front of people while they're dropping off their ballots. Now, which, by the way, is unnecessary because every ballot box in America has a video camera on it. But the violence, the new violence, is something we got to look out for. Very, very serious stuff, and it's happening all over the country. So thank you, Marilyn, for bringing up that point.
That's amazing. Ruth Strauss, our Alabaman, and then we'll go to John Brakey in Arizona, and John will want to report. And Ken Bennett is with us. Hi, Ken. State Senator Ken Bennett. We want to report on the vigilante activities in your state. Obviously, this is going to go on, and we want it to go on. Lori Grace will join us, but we have an open end here because this is obviously the most important story of the century. And thank you, Greg and Ray and Marilyn, for all your work in Georgia. We're also joined by Ray Lutz in the auditing business. But Ruth Strauss, go ahead, please. And then
I
John
just want
Brakey.
to say that film is the funniest, most frightening, most educating, most motivating film you could ever watch. It is outstanding. And I actually saw it twice on Sunday here at the opening, and I'd love to see it again. I mean, it's just fantastic. Everybody must watch it, and you must get everyone else to watch it. It's critically important, but it's also extremely entertaining while it's educating. Thanks.
Well, it's just like having Greg on your radio show. You know, Abby Hoffman once told me that the greatest organizing tool there is humor. And certainly Greg is the master of that. So, and thank you, Ruth. Ruth,
thank you so much. The check's in the mail.
We all know votes in Mobile, Alabama, or did once. John Brakey and Ken Bennett from Arizona. If you've got Ray McClendon in the heart of Georgia, MARILYN MARKS, one of the great election protection. Well, John, you and Marilyn know each other well, and we got Greg Palast with us. So, John, you want to start? What do we see this vigilante activity happening in Arizona?
I see it all over, and I am very, very concerned about it. That this is going to be, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and every election seems to get worse and worse. This one's going to take the cake. And you know, we need to make sure that it's ballots over bullets, because I think it could get very serious with the rhetoric that's going on in the underground and the actions that are taking all over the country. And so I totally agree with MARILYN MARKS and her observation and Greg's, and that we need to do everything we can to prevent violence and have facts ready to go. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, and thank you.
Well, Ray McClendon has also emphasized that. And, you know, Ken Bennett, do you want to add to anything here? Ken is a state senator, has been the leader of the Arizona State
Harvey,
Senate.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Harvey, I'm not prepared to talk about the vigilante things going around Arizona.
Okay.
I think what Greg mentioned as being possible are definitely possible here in Arizona. But I think Secretary of State Adrian Fontes and the county recorders and election directors in Arizona is about evenly split. We have 15 counties. I think 8 are run by Democrat county recorders and 7 by Republican, or vice versa. I'm not sure of the count, but I know when I was the Secretary of State of Arizona from 2009 to 2015, I kind of ignored the letter behind people's names, whether it was an R or a D, and we just operated like an election family here. And I think they continue to try to do the best they can that way. I know that our Republican county recorder here in Yavapai County, which is the heaviest Republican concentrated county in the state, she has been taking a lot of flack from kind of the far right that wanted her to get rid of drop boxes and all kinds of things. And she's helped them understand that they are much more secure than, ballots going into the blue U.S. post boxes and through the mail system and things like that. So I think people in both parties who are reasonable are pushing back against the vigilantism, but we're going to have our fair share in Arizona for sure.
Wow, it's really. Well, the other thing I wanted to mention that people aren't considering in the polls and the outlook on the election, and it's a form of vigilantism in a way, is the fact that Elon Musk now owns Twitter. And, a very substantial, of course, he's changed the name. I guess he wants to be known as Elon X. But at any rate, the information that a lot of people get, especially young people, is now coming from Facebook and Twitter and so on. And God only knows what Elon Musk is putting out to the billion or so people who have Twitter. This is a subterranean factor in this election that people need to consider. But the vigilantism, Ken, thank you, Senator, and John Brakey for that report. And, this is something that is also not on the public radar screen. And Greg's film here is the first real potent cry for help. Ray, you're looking at in the heart of Georgia here. I mean, is it part of the culture there? I mean, what's going on? Can you really tell us the depth of this threat?
This is an existential threat. What Greg is talking about is one of the most significant components of why our votes could be overridden in November. And we've got to remember, as Marilyn pointed out, that there's a whole range of voter suppression tactics being employed. And this is critical to understand that they have learned and evolved since 2020. That all of the things they were just taking a shot at the dark, they are now emboldened to embed into the process. What was just said about Arizona as an example doesn't apply in Georgia because they can, as I mentioned earlier, they control a combination of the governor's office and both houses of the state legislature with supermajorities. So they can pretty much dictate what they want to do. As an example, when Raffensperger, who is a Republican, nobody that I would be standing up and shouting hallelujah about. But one thing about him, he stood firm when Trump tried to get him to overturn the vote and just fined him, quote unquote, 11,780 votes. Because of that, they kicked him off of his ex officio position on the state election board. And that's how we got into this mess. So the chief election officer in the state does not sit on the state election board, which now is controlled by a bunch of MAGA loonies. And that's how we get into the shape that we're in with regard to certification, which is one of the pillars of the way that they want to overturn the election if they lose.
Could you explain, Ray, could you explain certification? That's in our film too. This is a whole new danger.
Right. We talked about certification last week,
sorry.
But it's okay. We need to do it again. I just want to tell Karishma and Lynn. Actually, let's open it up. Karishma, go ahead, and then Lynn, go ahead. Are you unmuted?
Hi.
Yes.
I just wanted to
Karishma.
say hi. So I'm from New Hampshire, and one of the other repercussions of all these vigilante efforts is that a lot of poll workers, veteran poll workers, are not interest in volunteering anymore at the polling stations because people
Ah.
are coming in with guns. So I have a full-time job, but now I volunteered at our primary election last week, and I'm going to be volunteering again during the general election. So it's it also another level of problems is arising from this kind of vigilante effort that Greg was talking about.
Right, getting poll workers is really a challenge, and you're in New Hampshire.
I'm
Very
in New
good.
Hampshire.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. While you're on the phone, if you go shut the Seabrook nuclear plant, I'd really appreciate it. And check back with us in an hour. Thank you. Lynn Finerman. Lynn?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to say that I saw the movie again. I had seen the first round, and it's just really, really good. I mean, it is just so much more cogent, so much more complete, so much better edited, so much more understandable. And the thing that really popped out for me is the racial element. You know, the clarity of how race is playing out in this election. And when you see Rump and what's the juvenile delinquent, JD, when you see them baiting on Haitians, you know, you get the idea finally that this is really what it's all about. It's all about the suppression of Latinos in Arizona, Black people in Georgia. It's like it's a race thing. And so I just wanted to say that I just really deeply appreciated that you made that commitment to that and really pushed that because it's really important. Thank you.
Greg, I don't know if you know Lynn. Lynn has a radio show out of the Bay Area, and you two should connect. Lynn, you should have Greg on your
Please.
show, so I'll exchange your
Before the 25th.
But yes, so you know, this is mind-boggling. Lori Grace is with us. Lori, are you available? You wanted to say a few words, I'm sure, with Greg and everybody. This is a heck of a group, by the way. So be able to put this together with Ray, to have you with Greg and Marilyn and John and Senator Ken. This is a big deal. Lori Grace, you wanted to say a few words?
Yeah, I would. So I've been busy studying the social psychology behind all of this. And I first found out in April about Project 2025. And of course, the Democrats ran all over it in a wonderful way. But on the other hand, when you have Trump saying, I never heard of it, if somebody believes that Trump has been appointed by God to become president of the United States, then
who
they
else would do
toss
it?
it out. They toss it out, you know? And the issue is that, you know, I started studying certain key films like Bad Faith and God and Country, where I began to understand the depths of what it means to with these evangelicals. And now if you look clearly at what Trump is saying, he said he's now saying the 2 assassination attempts that God intervened. You know, the one, you know, the most recent one. And so this is a very serious thing, because when you have religious advocates thinking that that God has appointed Trump, it becomes very dangerous.
Yeah.
Another thing, verifying what you, John and Ken have said, and also trying to remember Greg Palast, talking about violence. So to understand the depths of the violence, if you go to a movie called Against All Enemies, you see that veterans promise to serve the Constitution of the United States, an oath, and they have a belief, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, they have a belief that by becoming a militia, they're serving the you know, the Constitution to the United States. And they, of course, were very involved in January 6th. The issue, so, you know, when we start looking at problems, then the issue becomes, how do we deal with it? Well, first of all, with Cambridge Analytica in 2020, they got a whole list of gun owners in the United States who are Republican, who are willing to fight. Okay. And that's available in 2 different movies, People You May Know, and also The Great Hack. And let's remember that the young boy who tried to kill Trump the first time is the son of one of those gun owners discovered. Okay, so we have the development of a militia, and it's a serious militia. And I talked to Ken Bennett about it too, because I've been concerned about violence for a long time. And Ken admitted, months ago, yes, it looks like violence is a possibility. John Brakey did as well. And from my standpoint, what would be protection is I would want to see the National Guard around some of the election places. That would be my strategy. I'm not saying that I have the right strategy. But
Okay.
I'm concerned about this. For a
Well,
month,
Lori,
I
can we
have a
ask
little bit
Greg?
of time, by the way.
Can we ask Greg?
Yeah.
Lori's been talking a bit about the nature of sociopathic or whatever nature of these people. Can you talk to us a bit about what you learned and what shows up in your film? We have 70 people with us now. What is who are these people? What is their nature? And what's driving them? And Lori, of course,
one thing I'd hope he's in the other room. Otherwise, I'd call him in. The real expert, one of the nation's top experts on the ultra right wing and the violent right wing is Zach Roberts, who's a co-producer of our film. And I hope you have him on because he goes undercover in the groups. He's the guy who took those pictures of the Charlottesville Tiki Torch March that you saw on the cover of the magazine.
Wow.
He was of the Times Magazine and et cetera. So he goes inside these groups. He can give you the real breakdown on who they are, how they are, and how they operate. So he's a co-producer. So we have
we'll get him on. We'll get him on.
So please. So I don't want to step on a real expert statement. So we'll get back to that. But it is very important for people to understand that we see 2 points of violence, but especially the attack on anyone who's trying to vote with a drop box because they're unprotected by police there. In fact, in Arizona, I was just speaking with a group that has flying protection squads, 50 of them around the state. They're in the film. I don't know if you know Miss Mabry. So they have flying protection squads who are unarmed. They're de-escalation experts so that people aren't afraid to vote. They were also escorting.
You have an organized group that's ready in the November election to go to polls and protect voters?
They have 50 teams around Arizona because of this massive threats of violence in Arizona. I'm very concerned about certification days.
Well,
if you remember,
Greg, can we get the link to that group? I'm sure everybody's going to want
I don't have it right here, but you can get it in the film. So for those who just joined, this is Greg Palast, and we are offering the film Vigilantes, Inc., Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen. And you can get that film for free streaming at gregpalast.com. And if you want to do showings or anything, we can send you, everything, Blu-rays, DVDs, you name it, to get that out. Because we need to get it out, especially in places like Arizona, so people know that they could be under attack when they show up to vote, and they don't know it. The U.S. government cannot remove you within 60 days of a federal election, or the state government can't. But the vigilantes can attack your right to have your ballot counted on election day, and in Georgia after election day. So it's dangerous business.
Yes, and if you can get us the link, put it in the chat of the group who is going around protecting voters.
Yes,
that's something we need to have a discussion
I'll
about.
get it in a minute. I'm going to text. I'll text Zach.
That would be great. Okay, Lori, did you want to continue? Go ahead. Oh, wait, you're muted. Hold on. Hold on, Lori. Can we get
Lori, you can unmute yourself. You have to unmute. There she goes.
Lori, go ahead.
She's all set.
Another area that that has to be looked at carefully. Well, by the way, I just wanted to mention my friend Lulu Friesdat recommends if you want to be a poll watcher to go to smartelections.com, Lulu at smartelections.com.
Put that up, smartelections.com.
.us, I think it is.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, Lori, and then we have
what I want to say totally
Tatanka, and Lynn Feinerman.
What I want to say totally differently is I've been in touch with Brett Kimberlin, who is working with the Ukrainian underground that listened to what Putin is telling his people to do about the American election. They can do it underground. So here's what's going on. They believe that the low-hanging fruit, which shows up in the movie Kill Chain, where the guy from India changed addresses in a few minutes,
Yeah, he changed. They completely manipulated the electronic machines.
The low-hanging fruit is not to change the vote totals. The low-hanging fruit is to go right in and change the addresses. And so what Brett has recommended as a strategy for that is vote early and try to verify your address. He says that already he's found people with incorrect addresses that are reporting to him.
So they're changing this is online vigilantism, I guess. They're going and altering the registration on data. That's amazing.
And doing it many times.
Oh, and you mentioned to me very quickly that Trump got his
24/7.
hands on some software. Was it, who was someone told me about a software glitch also that may plague the whole process. Greg, you're still with us? Let's go.
Yes, I want to mention, I found the name of the group in Arizona. Okay, it's the Arizona Democracy Resource Center. The Arizona Democracy Resource Center, they have 50 teams of flying de-escalation experts.
Wow.
And you can find them at azdrc.org.
I hope somebody got that, Steve, maybe if you could put that back up. That's really critical stuff. I don't know where John Brakey is or Ken Bennett, but this is this is really stuff that has to be put out there. I don't know if there are other groups in other states. 1 second. I don't know if there are other groups in other states that have organized themselves to protect voters. But if this is a successful operation in Arizona, then we should get it out there. So if we have anybody has any connection to them, we'll try to have them all on the call next week. Tatanka and then Lynn.
Greg, please repeat the website.
Okay, I just put it in the chat, which is AZ, like for Arizona, AZDRC, which is Democracy Resource Center. So AZDRC.org. And I put it in the chat.
Thank you, Greg. Tatanka, and then Myla and Lori. I mean, Lynn, and then Lori can jump back in. Go ahead, Tatanka.
I think the host asked me to unmute, and I'm gonna just say something really quickly.
Whatever you want, Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you. From what I just want to refer to something that Lori Grace said, and that is she was talking about the attempted assassinations, and just wanted to throw in that the cult leader nutjob Jim Jones, when he began to slide, manufactured an assassination attempt on him to gain more sympathy from his followers. And I think that on some level, psychologically, that energizes his base.
Yeah, well, you would expect it. I mean, it's the burning of the Reichstag here. And these are scary times, boy. Okay, Tatanka, please, and then we'll go back. Thank you for that, Lynn. Tatanka, and then we'll go back to Lori.
I don't know. Ray was in mid-sentence when it went to a bunch of questions. I don't know if you remember, Ray, what you were saying. And the other thing is Greg brought up the certification process, which people in this call have heard, but many people haven't. So I wanted to give them both a chance to speak again.
Okay. Yes, Ray.
No, I think Greg went through it, and certification is going to be one of the pillars that they go after this time. It's a multifaceted strategy that they have now: purges, traditional voter suppression, misinformation campaigns, and one of these will be the certification, which is in court right now on what's going on and available now in all 159 counties. We've got to remember that if one county or two counties can hold this up, they can hold up the entire state's certification. And that is going to be something that we've got to stay on top of every day, even after the election.
Well, that, you know, with vigilantes running around and the election board and the governor and it's a miracle if there's even a vote count in Georgia that makes any sense whatsoever, boy.
And then these vigilantes showing up on election day at polling locations, at drop boxes, intimidating voters.
Yes. Okay. That's, as I said, that's a tremendous problem, not just in Arizona, believe me, but especially in places like Texas. Places with open carry states are real problems. Yeah. Oh, there we go. There's the Arizona group. Now, what I should note is that if you remember, Donald Trump tried to get Pence, Vice President Pence, not to certify the election. But under the U.S. Constitution, that's pretty difficult because the vice president doesn't have the choice of certifying or not certifying elections. But now they've gotten sophisticated, the GOP. They're now understanding that it goes down to the county level. So, for example, in our film, Vigilantes, Inc., America's new vote suppression hitman, we have the great Helen Butler, who is on the elections board in Georgia under SB 202, the horrible Jim Crow law in Georgia. She was personally removed from the election board by Governor Brian Kemp. He had the authority to do that because she did not want to go along. She failed to go along with an attempt not to certify the vote. Now, you should know that the state election board has announced that they have the right in Georgia not to certify a county that they say has not properly monitored their election system. And they said specifically just a couple weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago, that they would not, if that election board didn't exist in 2020. Now it's brand new, as Ray McClendon is telling us. This brand new state election board with the MAGA nuts has already declared that they would not have certified the tally in Fulton County. Now, Fulton County is Atlanta. Joe Biden won Fulton County by 250,000 votes. So if you take away Fulton County, if you say, oh, we're going to certify 158 counties, not Fulton, there's no chance that the voters will be deciding this election. And you're going to see literally physical battles over this in state after state after state. You know, before the January 6th attack, a couple weeks before the January 6th attack, Ali Alexander, you know, the head of Trump's organization, Stop the Steal, and Alex Jones were in front of the governor's mansion in Georgia, saying if they don't give Donald Trump the electoral votes here, they don't give us Donald Trump, we're going to light this shit on fire. That was a warning, and it was not investigated by the FBI. We have it on film. I have it on film. Ali Alexander say, we don't get Trump, we're going to light this shit on fire. And then he ended up leading the march to the Capitol with Alex Jones that ended up in death and destruction. So I'm really worried because we're not getting prepared enough for the violence as there is the battle over certification.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What other states have similar apparatuses that would challenge certification?
I should say that every state, because you have to have a certification of a, so what happens is the county certify, and then the state certifies the certification, and then it goes to the Electoral College. So every state is, you're going to see challenges. By the way, there was
and let me
violence
just-
over the certification in Oregon. We're going to see a battle in Oregon. You think it's
And
good?
let me just say that Rolling Stone did an article on this. What has been happening over the last 3 years is that the MAGAs have been embedding these election deniers on local election boards across the country. Once again, you know, Georgia is the proof of concept, but they've been strategizing on this in many other states to put these deniers in place. I mean, they've got them out in Arizona. You've seen where a couple of counties in Arizona refused to certify elections, and they had to be forced to. So this is a problem now that's going on across the country, where these election deniers will try to use whatever power they have. And remember that that the certification process is supposed to be ministerial. It is not supposed to be a judgment where it is a power that these boards have to then directly investigate. It should be the Secretary of State here, as an example, here in Georgia. But they've taken this now for the purpose of creating chaos. This is more about chaos than actually winning. Remember what Trump said in 2020 was, just say there's fraud and then we'll do the rest. Now they want these local election boards to say that there's fraud, to say that they can't certify, in order to give then the political cover to Trump and his minions to then go back to the state legislatures and overturn our legitimate votes. So it's not necessarily that they won't certify ultimately, it's to delay it enough to where they won't be able, by the middle of December, to have the election certified, and then they won't be in a position to submit the electors from that respective state to DC. And by virtue of that, they'll say, well, just let the state legislatures overturn it. Now, in those states that have Democratic governors and have split legislatures, this will be more difficult. In states like Georgia, where they have the control I keep talking about, if this had all been in place in 2020, those legitimate electors potentially would have been overturned. One of the key electors who should have been a part of the election interference case here in Georgia, then State Senator Burt Jones, is now the lieutenant governor. He is now the lieutenant governor. And so that's the power that is entrenched now. If we have the same kind of scenario, you no longer have in place Raffensperger to be a calming voice on the state election board, and you have across all of these counties, all of these MAGA election deniers who are now on these boards, and people like Helen Butler have been kicked off so that they can hold up the process. That's who brought the suit in Fulton County, was one of these election deniers on the Fulton election board. That's whose language was used to create this quote unquote reasonable inquiry rule that will now be used to sow the seeds of the chaos, in addition to what Greg Palast has already defined from Senate Bill 202. So they have become more sophisticated and they are embedded. So we need to be prepared for that challenge.
Well, Ken Bennett from Arizona has raised his hand. Let's see. Ken, did you want to say something to Ray?
Well, I just wanted to kind of confirm what did happen in Arizona in 2022. Of our 15 counties, in each county, it's the county board of supervisors that certifies the elections, or we call it canvasses the elections. It's usually about 10 days to 2 weeks after the election. One of the 15 counties, which only has 3 supervisors, 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, Cochise County down near the border, southeast Arizona. They refused to certify their county results because they were, I think, either suspicious or told to be suspicious that something had gone awry up in Maricopa County, our big county where the Phoenix area is. So they refused to certify, saying that Maricopa County had not conducted their election correctly. And it came to the point where the Secretary of State got a court order that ordered them to certify, and they did so at the last minute. Had they not done so, that county's results would have just been excluded from the state's total. It would have hurt Republicans and Trump because Cochise is a Republican county, but at least in Arizona. Now, the other states' laws may, I don't know how they are, but if 1 or 2 counties in Arizona refuses to canvass or certify their results in time for the Secretary of State to add all the totals together and certify the state's results, then that county just is omitted from the state totals, but it doesn't hold up the state certification at a time specific as required by state law. But just a little.
Under Arizona law, if you have a county or 2 that refuse to certify, their vote totals are subtracted, and
they're not subtracted; they're just not included. All the other 4, but that's subtract. Whether you want to call that subtraction or not inclusion, but in Arizona,
the question then, if you're saying an individual county refusing to certify does not block the state as a whole from certifying. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that the case in Georgia, Ray?
No.
So if you get 159 counties,
right,
in 1 versus 15 in Arizona, if you have 1 of the 159 counties refusing to certify, that blocks the entire state from certifying?
Yeah, that's the way the law works in Georgia.
Amazing.
Is there any mechanism to overrule the refusal to certify of an individual county?
Yeah, there are going to be lawsuits, and that's what's going on now. That's why these preemptive lawsuits have already started with the new state election board rule that you can do a quote unquote reasonable inquiry.
And that's what happened in Arizona, is that the Secretary of State waited as long as he could for Cochise County to send their certification. And after they had not done so, he went to court and got a court to order the County Board of Supervisors to certify and send their numbers in, and they did so at the last minute. But had they not, Arizona is apparently, if I'm correct about Arizona and Ray's correct about Georgia, and I assume he is, but in Arizona, if a county doesn't send their certification in, their totals are left out of the state totals, but the state can go forward with the remaining counties.
That's amazing. I assume that's not the case in Arizona and Georgia.
Right. And the difference is your Secretary of State Democrat or Republican?
Right now he's Democrat, but I was a Republican Secretary of State from 09 to 16. We've bounced back and forth between Republican and Democrat over the last 15 years. So
yeah, the problem we have here is that Raffensperger is a Republican. He continues to have other aspirations, and so there's going to be tremendous pressure on him from the MAGA Republicans to stay out of it. And
if we had had a Republican Secretary of State who did not want to pressure Republican Cochise County to send in their numbers, then Arizona would have had to certify the rest of the state's totals without Cochise. And as I said, Cochise is a Republican county. It would have only hurt the Republicans.
I don't think that's ever happened in U.S. history.
I don't think so either.
At least not since the Civil War.
Well, you can say a lot of things are happening right now that have never happened.
I mean, this is a mind-boggling discussion here.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope everybody, I'm sure everybody gets, there's nobody else having this discussion on the radio, for God's sakes. This is nitty-gritty here. Eric Lazarus, you want to have a quick question, and then Ray Watts has been waiting patiently, and then we'll go to MARILYN MARKS. Go ahead very quickly, Eric. I can't get you. All right. And then I'm going to unmute.
I'm going to have to jump off. I'm going to have to jump off here.
Finally unmuted.
Go ahead. I think Eric has a quick question for you. Go ahead, Ray. Eric.
Greg, is Greg Powell still on? I just had a question about, I've recently started volunteering for Field Team 6, who have an amazing infrastructure for texting millions of people. They've got thousands of volunteers and huge databases. It's an amazing operation. I'm wondering whether you would be willing to meet with them briefly.
Absolutely.
To think about whether there's a way to.
He says yes.
He says yes. He says yes, Eric. Eric, very good. Ray in Georgia, are you familiar with this group, Field Team 6?
I've heard of them, but I don't know much about them.
All right, so we'll get you jumped in the loop here. I'll
Okay,
you
sounds good. And I've got to run, but I'm putting in the chat.
Thank you very much. Great to have you on, Ray. Come back. We have to come back next week. This is obviously ongoing. So,
okay.
We'll see you again next week.
And Ray, before you leave, the other Ray Lutz wanted to make a point about the very short window Georgia has to certify its votes. If you wanted to comment on that on your way out.
Yeah, we found it was kind of interesting because a lot of states have maybe 29 days to certify. Maybe it's a little bit less for the presidential, but in Georgia, from my reading of the law, it was only 6 days, and up to Friday, the second Friday after the election, for other things. But no matter what, it's really, really fast, and I'm worried that they're going to say no matter what. Lots of counties, if with this new rule, they're going to say, "Oh, we're not done yet. We can't."
Ray Lutz, we get it. We just want to hear from Ray McClendon before he leaves.
Ray's absolutely correct. The law requires them to certify by November 12th. The election is on November 5th. And so they should, according to the time frame, that very following week. And so that should handle the problem. Again, the issue is to what Ray was alluding to is that what they're going to come back and say, oh, we just haven't had time to go through all of the problems that we found. And as local election board members, this is local election boards now, 159 of them around the state, will have the opportunity then to say that they just haven't had time to go through all of the questions that their constituents have come up with, and they need to do this reasonable inquiry, and that will need to continue beyond the statutory date, and therefore they will refuse to call the meeting and certify. So then either the Secretary of State, in all likelihood, other state election board, and I don't expect the state election board to do it because they're the ones that came up with this rule, will have to then step in to force them, likely in the courts, to adhere to the state statute. So what Ray is talking about is absolutely on point, but this is not going to stop them from creating the confusion and the chaos.
Wow, I'm going to go MARILYN Marks in 1 second.
MARILYN has a question for me before I go. Go ahead.
MARILYN, all right, go ahead. MARILYN Marks, please.
Yes, thank you. Before you leave, for next time, could you talk about, and I know it may take a little longer than you have to right now, but could you talk about that balance that there's got to be between doing a reasonable inquiry at the time of canvass and getting the right canvass, versus that ministerial duty of certification. And I think Helen Butler is the perfect example. You know, she refused to certify in 2020 because what we had found was the fact that the scanners were not fully scanning properly. There were votes being missed, votes not being counted. And she insisted to her Republican-controlled election board, we need to count those votes. And she did not agree to certify because they weren't counting all the votes. We know many other, as you know, probably, Ray, lots of big accuracy errors that didn't get caught in the canvas, but we certainly want accuracy. So next time, could you talk about how do you create that balance between, yes, we want reasonable inquiry and accuracy at the canvas, and then the ministerial certification?
Well, I think, yeah, and just real quickly on that, I think that there's some great minds on here that do this every day, that can connect in with Brakey and Ray and some others who know that end of the process very well, and that should be connected in with the Secretary of State. My big concern here is that the Secretary of State is out of the loop in this.
My concern is he wants to be out of the loop.
Well, we need a Secretary of State that would assert their authority here. But like I said, I think he has other ambitions, and he does not want to upset the Republican electorate, and it's going to be Georgia voters that suffer. But we can get into that with
yeah, let's do it again next week. Ken Bennett in Arizona, this is all.
Yeah.
Ken Bennett in Arizona. Thank you so much.
Let me just say that I put in the chat, I sent to you guys, if you'll put up for me later, we're having a fundraiser webinar on Sunday evening from 7 to 8:30. The flyer is in the chat. We're going to have, and I'd ask Mike if you would put it up later and share it with everybody. We're going to have our key Congress people from Georgia are going to participate. We have Sanford Bishop, Nakima Williams, along with Hank Johnson, as well as Bishop Reginald Jackson, who has been one of the foremost election advocates here. Yeah, it's up on the screen now. So we're going to be talking about what's going on the ground in Georgia now, what we intend to do over the next 7 weeks, covering all of the issues that we're talking about today. So we'd love to have you participate. Former Mayor Shirley Franklin is also going to be a part of the program. So we'd love to have everybody on this call, and others, please share that with other folks so that we can raise the money we need to raise to be out in the streets over these last 7 weeks to make sure we deliver for Georgia.
Fantastic. So all that information is posted in the chat. We hope. Thank you, Ray.
All
Thank
right.
you for
Thanks,
coming.
guys.
And next week we'll continue this. Ken Bennett in Arizona. Does any? Take care, Ray.
All right. Thanks.
We'll talk. Ken Bennett, does any of this sound familiar? As a former state secretary of state, what's your reaction to what Ray McClendon just said about what's happening in Georgia? And how does it relate to Arizona?
Well, I oversaw 12 statewide elections during my 6 years as Secretary of State in Arizona. And, you know, it was a different time and we just really didn't have these issues. There was a much higher level of trust and a lot of bipartisan cooperation between my office as the constitutional authority over elections in the state, but the reality of the elections really happening at each county level. We only have 15 counties to deal with in Arizona instead of 159 in Georgia. But Greg and everybody who's been talking about the fact that people are waking up, MAGA and others, to the fact that the place to really make these challenges or hold things up fairly or unfairly is at the county levels. And Now, as I said, Arizona apparently is different than Georgia. If one county holds up for the right or the wrong reasons, it doesn't hold up the whole state of Arizona, but it could lead to the exclusion of the results from that one county.
And that would certainly run into a court case. I mean, nobody's going to let a state certify its results minus one or two counties without some kind of legal challenge. I don't think that's ever happened.
Especially since, Cochise County, for example, is a small sliver of the overall state, but it's a pretty good chunk of the congressional district that it's part of. And so it would have altered the person who won a seat in Congress. And so fortunately, between state races, congressional districts, state legislative districts, there's enough give and take between how the exclusion of a particular county would favor some Republican races, but also hurt some Republican races, that even if Secretary Fontes, the Secretary of State, had not challenged or had not gone to court to get a judge to order Cochise County to send their stuff in, I think somebody else would have. One of the I think it would have been Juan Ciscomani, who won that congressional district, Republican, but Latino, kind of moderate Republican. He would have not won his race if Cochise County's results were excluded. So had the Democrat Secretary of State not gone to court to force Cochise County to report, it probably would have been a Republican congressional candidate who would have gone to court.
So, but you're saying a court forced the local station board to certify against their will?
Yes.
What court was it?
I believe it was the.
Was it state? It wasn't federal.
Was it federal? It was a state. It was a state court. It was a state. I think it was a state Supreme Court. I think the Secretary of State did a special action to the state Supreme Court and convinced them to
force the county
order the county board of supervisors of Cochise County, which is the county election board, to certify the results.
But it never went to federal court.
No.
Wow.
Could have if Juan Ciscomani, the Republican candidate who, with Cochise County's results, won his congressional seat, he may have chose to sue in federal court. It could have happened in state or federal.
Well, it's obviously going to happen this year. Clearly, the certification issue is going to go into federal court somewhere.
Probably.
Certainly from Georgia alone, people are going to take it up.
Especially if Georgia is structured with their state laws that they can't go forward. They can't send their electors to Washington unless all 159 counties have certified their results to the state. In that situation, everyone in the state now is potentially harmed by one county in the state trying to hold things up.
And it happened, but it never got to federal court. So I wonder if there's any federal precedent on any of this.
Yes.
Is there, Greg?
Okay. The election of 1876, you'll see this in my film. We didn't get certification of the Electoral College. So there's a precedent here. In 1876, the Republican Rutherford P. Hayes was lost the popular vote, but he also lost the Electoral College. And a deal between the Ku Klux Klan controlled Democratic Party and Northern Republican industrialists overturned that election.
Right.
And so, and that's in our film. It's very important to understand we have had elections literally taken away from the voters in that manner, not just the stuff like in Florida that I did and others. So this is a very, very dangerous business. You get the historical story in Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen. I'm going to have to leave. I hope you do invite
Greg, thank you so much.
Roberts back.
It's great
for
to
me.
see you, and I love the new hat. So somebody's shopping for you. Good, thank you, Greg Palast. Thank you very much. And I do want to just mention he was right. And the president who came in on that deal was Rutherford B. Hayes of Ohio, and the price we all paid was that in exchange for the presidency, he ended Reconstruction, which totally, desertified the race relations in this country. Ken, is there anything else you want to jump? It's fascinating having you here. Nobody has the knowledge you do, and to have you counterpointing with what's happening in Georgia is really of tremendous value.
Harvey, I had come on because I thought John Brakey and I were going to share a little bit about a new election verification
tool.
Yes.
But that's right.
But
I don't know. Ken, we have time if you do. We're going to go another 40 minutes.
Oh, so I only have 5 minutes. So.
Harvey.
All right, well, then go ahead and do it, Mike. John, Lori, we'll give you the grace, please. Ken Bennett, go ahead with John. This is an amazing thing. Go ahead.
Well, let me start
let me have
then,
John,
and
let me have John start. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Okay, Harvey and friends, Senator Ken Bennett and I are pleased to introduce ABE, a simple auditing breakthrough that reinventing election transparency and public trust. Okay, we see ABE. We see the key to healing this nation's deep divide publicly through verified elections. Okay. Senator Ken Bennett, Susan Pinshaw, Ellen Tyson, and I, along with others, have developed a groundbreaking election audit system that we believe will dramatically enhance election verification. It's simple by publicly requesting 2 key records, the ballot images and the cast vote record database. Anyone can verify that each anonymous ballot was counted exactly as was cast. Okay, this is a major step forward for transparency and public trust in our elections. Yes, seeing is believing. ABE is a revolutionary tool that defies the election auditing. It links anonymous ballot image directly to the cast vote record database, which basically is a spreadsheet with rows and columns for recording elections. Whether it's early voting, mail-in ballots, election day, or provisional ballots, ABE ensures that every vote is accounted for with precision. It organizes ballot images into precinct files, which paired in with the CVR database. Why does this matter? In today's climate, trust in elections is more critical than ever. ABE enables precinct level audits, which are the most reliable election record due to having historical demographics. By auditing at the detailed level, ABE promotes the kind of transparency that can restore confidence in our democratic system and help heal the divide plaguing our nation and creating citizens that is destroying our democratic republic. What to see ABE in action? Want to see ABE in action? We invite you to watch a 19-minute video to show how ABE can transform election audits. We encourage you to run ABE and share it with colleagues, especially those familiar with election data and are familiar with Microsoft Excel Office. ABE's pivot tools let users dive into the data, leaking anonymous ballots and CBR precincts levels, making it easy to query and verify the results are recorded accurately. We want to give credit to Microsoft Office's team. Their platform made ABE possible. We use Microsoft Office powerful tools to develop macros that streamline election auditing in elections. A macro is computing is a series of instructions, commands that are grouped together, perform tasks automatically to repetitively task, making them more efficient. In the November 8th, 2022 election in Dade County, Wisconsin, with 302,975 voters across 274 precincts, ABE processed and organized the data by precinct in less than an hour. The beta test attached documents that we're putting out has 6,600 images and 23 precincts and processed the data in less than 1 minute on my computer. By randomly selecting precincts for auditing, people can quickly verify the election results, ensuring that the ballot images match what is in the official cast vote record database. By conducting risk-limiting type audits, we can verify the integrity of the data in the cast vote record. Auditing by precinct also provides a valuable insight into historical demographic voting patterns. The best part of Abe, it's free to use. It requires a Microsoft Office. As a closing thought, I would encourage you to check out the op-ed, which offers a detailed overview of my 20 years of experience in elections. It's titled Digital Ballot Images, Keys to Trustworthy Elections and Bridging Our Great Divide. This can be found on whowhatwhy.org. And please download the beta test of Abe and run it yourself. I will provide links in the chat box for you'll be able to find the details of all of this. Thank you very much. And that just, it's a important things that we're trying to do because we really want to fight the cynicism that's destroying this country. Like a lot of us are talking here, we see bad things coming up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ken Bennett, did you want to add to this presentation?
Well, just to try to put in a few sentences, what John's saying is that the fundamental thing that this tool does, and it's groundbreaking in that it's free and we'll give it to anybody or whatever, but it's not groundbreaking in the sense that nobody else is comparing ballot images to the cast vote record. Ray Lutz has been doing that for years. Ballot Verifier, which is used by the state of Idaho and some other counties, does that. But the essential thing is that we think that one of the best ways to verify that an election was done correctly is to allow people to compare on a ballot by ballot or hundreds of ballots or every ballot by county, by precinct, by state, by whatever. Do the ballot images that are recorded by the machines when a ballot goes through a machine, and you can see on that ballot image, in this race, there's a vote for Smith. In the next race, there's a vote for Jones. In the next race, there's a vote for Garcia. The election management systems that are used throughout this country essentially work in a very simple thing that says we program the election management system so that when it sees a ballot, if it finds a black mark in this spot, it's a vote for Smith. If it sees a black marks in this place, it's a vote for someone else. And then it records those votes for Smith or someone else on a spreadsheet. And each row of the spreadsheet is a ballot, and the columns on that row are the different candidates. And so the votes from a ballot are recorded on a spreadsheet and tabulated vertically in the columns. And so if you have the ballot images and the cast vote record spreadsheet, anyone who wants to verify that the election was tabulated correctly can do so. And that's what Abe does. Wow. It's similar to what Ray Lutz has done. It's similar to what Ballot Verifier does, which is a for-profit company that is being used in some states. But we think it's very important that anyone who questions elections has transparency and trackability and the ability to publicly verify election results.
Fantastic. And I know this has been a huge project for John Brakey, who really introduced ballot scanning to the a whole dialogue here. And Ken Bennett, it's great to have you on board and pushing this. And it's something that hopefully, if we have elections we can rely on, we won't be having coup d'etats, which we almost did 4 years ago. So, and it was prevented. Trump's case, which he lost 60 times, was prevented. The reason he lost them was because hand-marked paper ballots that were digitally scanned. That's the whole proof that the courts had. And had it not been for them, we'd have a very different world right now. Thank you both. Keep coming back. John,
I'd love to hear what Ray says. Ray's got his hands raised.
Yeah, I do too.
Ray Lutz, okay, and then we'll go to Lori Grace and Mike Hirsch. Oh, and MARILYN MARKS, you've been waiting also with a presentation, so we will find time for that. We will adjourn at 4:20 as usual, and keep rocking and roll here. That's Pacific time. Ray, go ahead, and then Lori.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm glad to see that this sort of ballot viewer and comparator is available. There's another number of other areas, and hopefully we can work together, because Audit Engine can give you exactly which ballots are the ones to look at and kind of narrow down what to look for. And so I developed a standard interface for that. But I wanted to mention this important thing that we just did. We just sent a letter to the President, Biden, and the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to clarify the language, which says that they have to retain, records from the elections, including digital records. But some states are not thinking of ballot images as being digital records for some reason. They're leaving that out. And so they're deleting them continuously. There's lawsuits to do this. I know John his group has been pushing on that, and a number of attorneys that have been really working on, especially in Florida. But there was ballots deleted in Fulton County and other places. You can say, well, they accidentally deleted them, but we don't want them deleting them, right? This is important data that should be preserved. And I think preserved permanently. I think it should be done by the federal government to preserve all ballot images permanently, and the archives, let's have a standard format and do it. It doesn't really cost much to do that. And with all of the records that they keep, we know every phone call is probably recorded. So they have plenty of ability to save these. It's an important thing to do. So I'll put in the chat the link to our letter, and it also revealed some other privacy issues that we want them to work on in doing this, and also voter intimidation. We want the voter intimidation laws to be improved so that you can't use these records to try to figure out and then say, oh, this is how so-and-so voted. If you do that, that's voter intimidation. I think also in voter intimidation should be if you say, if you have the election official keeping a record of every person and their ballot numbered, it's supposed to be secret, but it could be let out. That's also a form of voter intimidation. You can read the letter. I'll put it in the.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Thank you very much. Good to have you with. Anything else before we go?
No. I just wanted to inject that. I know it's sort of off topic, but
No, it's fine.
Announce that real quick. Thanks.
Listen, the three of you, Ken, Ray, and John, if you'll be our tech team and keep checking with us every other week at least on all the development, electronic developments, it's incredibly important, and we appreciate that. And you guys have changed the face of elections. There's no doubt about it. So take pride, and I hope you keep going ahead with all this incredible work, especially that you ripped off a program from Microsoft. Didn't rip it off.
We're just using Microsoft Excel.
Right.
It's fundamentally Microsoft Excel with some macros that
and it's free. So if you'll post the link,
this is not rocket science or something magic.
I just did post them, and I want you to know we are in dialogue with Microsoft Office now. Okay.
Wow, good.
And they are reviewing it, and hopefully we'll wind up endorsing it. Okay. And because it's a platform, and if you, I've had Microsoft Office on my computers for 25, 30 years. Okay. I wouldn't do without it. Okay. And but it costs $72 a year to have it.
All right, that's good. And listen, in the course of your negotiations with Bill Gates, we tell him to get off this nuclear thing. It's ridiculous and embarrassing.
If I talk to him, I promise I will.
Okay.
Also, ask him to send us a check too for this commercial.
Right.
Yeah, I'm hoping they would consider that. But it really, I have to give them credit because we didn't invent anything. All we did was use macros.
So
That's all.
if they push
It's their
this,
platform that we did this with, and
right,
it's amazing what was in there that I never even knew about.
right,
And one
okay.
particular thing was Microsoft Pivot, and that's where I read the document and read about it, because there's nothing like deep diving the
Okay.
data.
Hey,
John,
John,
that's great.
John, we got to
Thank
move
you.
on, but this is
Yeah,
all
thank
great
you,
stuff.
John. Well, keep us posted and enjoy being with Mr. Gates, and good luck. Okay, but we'll be back in touch. And Ray, thank you for that. You guys are a great team, and we want to keep going to you. Appreciate it. Lori Grace, also part of our great team. Please jump in.
All right, so I've certainly been in and out of feeling overwhelmed and inspired watching all of this. And, you know, in terms of becoming, if I was to become a poll watcher in a swing state, I would have a need for safety, because I expect that there could be militia there. And there are militia forming even in California.
Yeah.
There's one in Sebastopol area, West Marin. But aside from that, so I'm a little bit stuck on how to do things and do things safely. Okay. Now I've been talking to John about how the ballot images have been held up for so long, and you know, I think he has a lawsuit on that, and I'm really glad, Ray, that is going to appeal to President Biden, and hopefully something will happen. But I have been a little bit lost about how to help, and perhaps
Well, we did have a report from a group in Arizona that's going to be safeguarding the polls, I believe.
Right.
John Brake, we had their, I can't remember the name of it, but we had their stuff. Steve, maybe you got it, posted it. But so hopefully there'll be nonviolent groups all over the country protecting the polls. It's going to
I
be.
hope so. I thought it would need to be presidential and the National Guard. I mean,
That would make sense, but then of course you get charges of a coup in the other direction.
Oh.
So, what can I tell
Very
you?
good point. Very good point. And then the other thing is I mean, I think I'd like people to know that the Ukrainians are, the FBI has been embedded with the Ukrainians, and they have been watching what Putin is planning. And so at the Democratic Convention, they were planning a big outburst, a civil outburst at the convention, but the FBI were actually involved in stopping it before then.
Well, that's good to hear.
That is a result of somebody reading the communications going on with Putin, and the Ukrainians are
Okay.
great. Okay, so I
Yeah.
just want to mention that. And
Just one more. We have other people waiting.
yeah, okay. So I just wanted to say that I'm open to ideas about how to help on a limited level financially or personally. That's all.
And we should mention that Lori has been a donor to the cause, and we've been, what, 25 years, Lori, or 20?
Yes.
You're, of course, much younger than I am, but Lori is a great bulwark of the election protection movement. Thank you so much, Lori, for joining us today. Appreciate it. I want to go to MARILYN MARKS now, who MARILYN is a stalwart in both Georgia and North Carolina on election protection. And MARILYN, you have a PowerPoint for us. Is that right? Remember, we're on radio, so you got to explain so that people listening in can't see will know what we got. And Lori, thank you again, Lori, and a big aloha and mahalo.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that the PowerPoint is going to go up automatically. And for people who might be listening and don't have it in the chat, if they want to see it, they can go to bit.ly/GA Steele, like Georgia steal, like somebody's going to steal the elections.
Okay.
Do I put up the PowerPoint? I thought it was going to be going up.
I don't know. Steve, did you get a PowerPoint? Steve Caruso, did you get a PowerPoint? No, he's shaking his head.
No, we didn't follow through on it.
Oh, yeah, okay. I put the link up, but let me try to share my screen.
You got the link here right now?
Yes,
that you can share in the chat.
some messages ago. I'll do it again.
Okay.
Okay, there you
If
go.
it's easier for you, or shall I just share my screen?
Share your screen. Go ahead and do that.
Okay,
As
alrighty,
as a
let me see if I can
slideshow,
do
not
that.
as
Yeah,
individual
go ahead.
slides. Yes. You should be able to since you're co-hosted.
There we go. All right,
Yes.
good.
That work?
Yeah, now
For
now
those
go
of
ahead
you
and
listening in the
run the
radio,
show.
it says, "Will Trump steal the election?" September 16th, MARILYN MARKS.
Right. Thank you so much. And I want to say that I am speaking for myself as an individual here, not on behalf of nonpartisan nonprofit Coalition for Good Governance, where I'm executive director. And I want to focus on Georgia and focus on, is Trump in a position to steal Georgia? My answer is yes. Will he try it? My answer is yes. Interestingly, Vice President Harris sounded the alarm in the Senate in 2018. And in her 2019 book, she wrote how she invited Alex Halderman, Professor Halderman, that most of you all know from University of Michigan, to come demonstrate to a committee in the Senate how electronic voting can implant malware to flip votes. And she mentions it in her book. She has sounded the alarm nationally. And my very harsh statement is no one has her back in Georgia on this. The election is in position to be stolen and no one's doing anything about it. Why do I say that? Because Trump and his allies stole the software, the statewide software. It was done in 2021. They distributed that software to across all over the place to many of their MAGA experts. The state Secretary Raffensperger and the state election board has not even investigated the theft, much less done anything to mitigate this or taken any security measures. There was already a big problem because the state uses 100% unverifiable ballot marking devices, electronic touchscreens, and they are programmed centrally in the Secretary of State's office. There's therefore a single point of failure. Logic and accuracy testing requirements cannot be met by the current machines. So effectively, they are not getting properly tested. The ballot marking devices violate a whole host of other laws. The results in Georgia cannot be audited. That has been determined by Philip Stark. All of you know Philip Stark's good work. He has basically said results cannot be audited and the canvassing procedures are so bad, evidenced by thousands of miscounted votes in 2020, that also creates a risk. Trump has many different routes to corrupt the election or to challenge a loss. He can corrupt it on the front end or he can challenge his loss on the back end. And the Republican officials are just not interested in protecting the election. I'm going to talk very quickly about the theft of the software. It took place in January 2021. Sidney Powell paid for the theft of the software. A group came in, you see a picture of it happening right here. They were literally stealing the software while this picture was being taken, the software for the entire election. This is pictures of memory cards, USB sticks that they also took while they were there. They were there right after the US Senate runoffs 2 days before. They took all of the data from those Senate runoffs and literally we saw them in Discovery. We got information that showed they were texting each other, talking about should they try to upend the Senate runoff or save it for a bigger movement in the future. I believe that bigger movement is November. How did it all get started? It started at the war room of the Willard Hotel. And you all have read about that war room. You've read about the kinds of plans they were making there. Giuliani was there. Phil Waldron was there. And the Coffee County GOP chair was there. And it turns out that arrangements were then made for Sidney Powell's people are also arranged by Giuliani to go to Coffee County, Georgia, and steal the software that runs the entire state's equipment. It would be the same as stealing Fulton County, DeKalb County, any other software. They've got it all. On December the 18th, 2020, you've all read about the unhinged meeting that took place at the White House, where Giuliani, Mike Flynn, Patrick Byrne, Sidney Powell were there screaming at each other about what they were going to do to try to keep Trump in office. It is at that meeting where they made the plans to surreptitiously try to get the software from friendly people like Kathy Latham in the in a friendly county. Here we have video footage, and we were lucky to be able to get this video footage of the very people who were hired by Sidney Powell to come in and take the software. We see here those people. We see Kathy Latham, the Coffee County chair of the GOP. She's been indicted by Fani Willis. And then this was an election board member. And this is Misty Hampton. You all may know her name. She was also indicted by Fani Willis. Later, Doug Logan of Cyber Ninjas went with his sidekick, and they took more.
Cyber Ninjas are the people from Arizona, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, he's actually from Florida, but John
yeah.
Brake would know him for doing all the work that they did in Arizona. What can the attackers do with Georgia software? They can do so many different things. They can create malware to disrupt the election. I fear that there may be malware that gets planted to just turn machines into bricks on election day. They can change votes. They can flip votes without detection. Because the programming is at a state level, not a county level, as I said, there's single point of failure. There can be a hack done there, hack done at the county election computers, or individual machines while they are in the election office, or machines in the polling places. There are many different routes. This software theft was the largest voting system breach in the history of the nation, and nothing has been done about it. Not one thing has been done about it. All the software is still the same. There are no mitigations for the fact that the system was compromised. And on top of it being compromised, it was found to be, in a study by Alex Halderman in our court case, it was found to be extremely vulnerable to exploitation. This is even before anybody knew that it had been stolen. And CISA of Department of Homeland Security studied Alex's findings and agreed. I will put the PDF in the chat, and these are links to various background stories that you can read. There are many, many more. Happy to supply them to you. And this will also have my contact information. And that's kind of an overview. I could go on for 5 days and talk about the difficulty here, but that's kind of an overview of what is keeping me up at night about Georgia. And I will
It's
stop.
phenomenal work, Marilyn. We know your work for years and years, and who needs monster movies? This is the most terrifying stuff I've ever seen.
It is terrifying.
When you consider what's at stake here. I mean, my God. Mike Hirsch, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Sluggo. I just want to give a shout out to this team put together this amazing Zoom. We heard from Greg Palast on the left. We heard from Ken Bennett on the right. We heard from John Brakey doing the work of the angels. MARILYN MARKS, who's been working so hard for so long, telling the truth in a nonpartisan way. Lori Grace, thank you so much for your years and years of leadership. You will not hear a lineup like this anywhere outside of GREEP. This is just an incredible, enlightening Zoom. And I just wanted to give all of us a round of applause for sticking through to hear all this riveting news and getting the deep dives about Arizona and Georgia with Ray McClendon, and ALAN Minsky's working on a national effort to inform voters and warn them about all the different efforts to suppress voting, intimidate voters. And we're not just talking about the things that are going wrong and what to be afraid of. We're also getting together and mobilizing to do something about it. And that's a testimony to Sluggo Wasserman and our whole team. I also want to hand over to Sally Castleman, who's been very patient. She has a question. She hasn't been able to raise her hand, but Sally, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Yeah, I don't see her here.
Okay.
There you are, Sally.
That's because my computer's broken. So everybody's been incredibly clear, and clearly there's some serious, very serious threats. I mean, it's just more of the same and worse of the same as from before. And my question is, I'm sort of reiterating what Lori just said, and that is, we have vigilantes, we have malware, we have refusal to certify. There's just so many, many new things and bad things, and I'm just incredibly despondent, not having heard anything about, except for a very couple things, what we should be doing. I mean, obviously it was really important for everybody who has spoken to have dug up all this stuff, but where should some of us who want to be able to send funding, or what should we be working on and telling others to work on?
Well, the group that has been closest to us, that has done the most grassroots get out the vote work, is Center for Common Ground. And so when people, and they are nonpartisan, so they are the ones, I believe, who and they're also only in the BIPOC states, by the way, but that's the group I recommend to people. And they will send you postcards also, or at least I don't know how that works actually. Maybe they mail you postcards, but postcarding they do by the hundreds of thousands. And it's
one of the things I'm wondering is, I remember before that Ray McClellan said for a while was in charge of the Atlanta NAACP, if I remember right.
He started a new group.
And that he was incredibly effective and to send money there. And also, the other thing I'm wondering, and I want to hear what
he's
you're
not.
saying.
Ray McClellan is no longer with the NAACP.
I know.
Okay.
I know. But also, there was a lot of there were groups who were trying to notify people who had been purged to go and re-register.
Right. I think the Center for Common Ground will probably be on top of that, or Ray McClellan's group, which is called Communities United.
Communities United. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget GREEP.
Yeah.
We're doing a couple things too here.
Okay, good. And thank you for that narration, Mike. It was terrific.
Real quick, as Dustin Hoffman might say, hey, we're walking here. We're working here.
Okay. Did you have more to say, Mike, or you want me to go to Steve and then Dorothy?
Go ahead to Steve. Thank you.
Steve and then Dorothy and then John.
Yeah, and at league with the images not being saved, there's one election in Wisconsin, for those who've been watching the scene for decades now. They took the data cards out of the machines and shipped them to Minnesota before the expiration to what command or control center, which had the logo of an all-seeing eye on a pyramid. And this was in Minnesota next to one of the Republican candidates' office there. So they didn't retain their records either back in the day. So that might have opened a door to this thing, just making people a little hedgy about sharing the ballot images too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Dorothy Reich and John and then Lori. We're almost out of time. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Unmute. There you go.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There.
Can't unmute.
Yeah, we're here. We can hear
Hear
you.
me now? Does it sound okay? I was just wondering, I'm at work, so it's hard to catch everything. Did anybody mention Louis DeJoy in this call? That Georgia is really worried that they're not going to put the special measures in place in time, so that a lot of ballots in Georgia are not going to get, mail-in ballots are not going to get here. And I think we probably have to worry about that for the whole country, because Louis DeJoy is dead set against getting absentee ballots and mail-in ballots to the right place at the right time.
It is truly amazing to me that after 4 years or 3.5 of Democrat in the White House, that guy is still in charge of the Postal Service. I mean, I think they should have shipped him to Haiti or something. But he's just awful. And Biden had the chance to remove him, and he's still there. It makes no sense. And you're right. We have to, well, because of Bobby Kennedy's court challenge, what is it? North Carolina has to reprint and resend all their ballots. I forget which state, but the feds, one court ruled that Bobby Kennedy had the right to take his name off the ballot, even though the ballots had already been printed, and there's a deadline to mail them out. And so that's going on.
Worried about that. I'm worried about just in general that DeJoy's he's going to make a concerted effort not to get absentee ballots back to
something we have to watch for. Anything else, Dorothy? How's the heat up there?
That's it. Thanks. So I'm glad I caught something that you missed. I can't believe that you guys missed that.
We've missed a lot, but because there's so much going on. Lori, did you want to comment? And then Brakey?
Yes, I'd just like to comment. I was trying to think where I might have some level of unique opportunity to help. And that is that I have a sister that's an evangelical Christian who doesn't like Trump. Now, I know there's a whole new post-evangelical group that's coming out that is disputing that Christian nationalism is a form of Christianity. And so I want to invite anybody who has contacts on this to talk about it, because I was raised Christian. I also am going to appeal a second time to Danny Sheehan, who is the Jesuit lawyer for the Pope, to make a statement about Christian nationalism not being Christianity. And I know I can help in this way in some way, but if there's anybody out there who has some contacts, I'm happy to receive them.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for that. That's really interesting. And
yes,
the idea that first of all, the idea that this is a Christian country is completely provably wrong. And secondly, I don't even know where to start, if anybody does, with the evangelicals. But if you got any line in there, Lori, you're the one to go in and
evangelicals have the ones that are Trumpish have promoted that Trump has been appointed by God, and so they're very they push hard as religious radicals. Okay, but there's another group of Christians that oppose this. So,
hey, Lori, we'd love to pick this up on another show.
John
We're
Steiner.
looking at 4 minutes and
John
a bunch
Steiner,
of
go
people
ahead.
need to get in.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Thank you, Lori. You were great. Thank you so much for.
Hey, Laurie and others, the two groups that you're referring to, the 501c3 is Evangelicals for Democracy. The 501c4 is Evangelicals for Harris.
and they're both terrific.
They're both terrific. We've worked with them for years. Richard Zizik has been behind it. I'll send you some information and I'll copy you, Harvey and Stephen, and you can
Please
pass it.
put it in the chat. We can have if you have a contact, they want to come on next week to talk about it. It'd be great.
You're on.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll do it.
All right. Very good. John Brakey. Thank you.
Real quickly, this is directed at Sally and everybody, but I think one of the suggestions that would be good is to get with candidates and express to them how important that they work to verify the vote by filing a records request, in order that they have a responsibility to prove to their voters that if they really won or lost, because it really is that simple to verify, especially if you're working on a precinct level. And so if documents were put together and we approach candidates and says, hey, we want you to file this records request, you don't have to explain why you want these records, but we think it would be good because we want to educate the public that the problems in elections are very complicated, but the solutions are simple. It's called transparency. Right. And transparency is what? It's the currency of trust. And without it, our democracy is dying in darkness. I fear that if things start getting crazy in this country, Taiwan's going to go in, and I mean, China's going to take over Taiwan. The Russians will make
John. Okay,
what's going to happen.
Here. Okay, we're down to the last. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. And come back next week, and we got to talk this technical stuff further. And MARILYN Marks, your presentation is mind-boggling, as is your work. We're almost out of time. You want to give us a hearty farewell? But wait,
Did you say for me to give you a farewell?
No, but tell us, you've got more. Your presentation was wonderful. Is there more you'd like to add?
Well, I don't know where to start other than to say that this certification thing is complicated. And it is, I think we have really got to watch out for finding a way to make sure that I'll say it in a partisan way, the Democrats on these election boards are trying to make sure that the best numbers that are available are included in the canvas, because Georgia, under Secretary Raffensperger, has no canvassing procedures. There are no written canvassing procedures. And
Wow.
what has been happening is that inaccurate tallies are being put in. I am as worried, as I said in the chat, I am as worried about wrong numbers getting certified. After all, most of the counties are red counties with Republican control boards. I'm as worried about wrong numbers getting in there and certified as I am about the delay in certification. And right now, no one is working on that.
Hey, all right. Well, listen.
Happy news, huh?
And we're going to tell a funny story here. Thank you so much, Marilyn, and we'll have you back too with Ray and the whole Georgia. We got a Georgia team, we got an Arizona team. And listen, everybody, it has been 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's now 4:20. Time to go out and toke up. And we have the longest attention span of any group in America. 43 people are still with us after 2 hours and 20 minutes. So there you go. We love you all. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week. See Greg Palast movie and donate to GREEP or whoever else. And we'll be back next week. Okay? God willing. Thank you so much. And thank you, Steve Caruso, especially for engineering. A real trooper's job. We really appreciate it. And Mike Hirsch as well. Dorothy, it's good to see you.
No nukes.
No nukes, everybody. And we will see you in Solartopia.